You can't even go to the bathroom alone anymore. You stand up, they notice. Before you've taken 3 steps, the crawling starts, or the toddling, or the full sprint waddle across the living room floor. You close the door. They sit outside it and scream like you've disappeared off the face of the earth. You open it. Instant silence, big eyes looking up at you. Crisis over. Every parent knows this scene. Most laugh about it. Some find it exhausting. A few start to wonder if something is wrong with their child or with themselves for somehow raising a tiny human who cannot tolerate a single minute of separation. Nothing is wrong. What's actually happening on the other side of that bathroom door is one of the most sophisticated survival programs ever written by evolution. And when developmental psychologists finally mapped it out, what they found inside that screaming, door pounding baby wasn't clinginess. It wasn't manipulation. It was something so ancient and so precise that it changes everything about how you understand your child's behavior. Let's start with what most people believe. The theory everyone has heard, the standard explanation you'll get from well-meaning relatives, parenting forums, and the occasional outdated pediatrician goes something like this. Your baby follows you everywhere because you spoiled them. You held them too much, you responded too fast, you created a habit, and now that habit is running your household. It sounds logical. It fits the idea that parenting is mostly about training small humans to behave correctly, and it's almost entirely wrong. Here's what the science actually found. In the 1950s and 60s, a British psychiatrist named John Bowlby began studying something that nobody in mainstream psychology wanted to take seriously at the time. What happens to children when they are separated from their caregivers? Not emotionally, not behaviorally, biologically. What actually happens inside the body of a child who cannot find the person they depend on? What Bowlby found launched an entirely new field of developmental science, and it started with a question so simple it sounds almost stupid. Why do babies cry when you leave? Not what does it mean socially, not how should parents respond, but why, at the level of the nervous system, does a human infant treated separation from a caregiver like a life-threatening emergency? The answer, Bowlby argued, is that for most of human history, it was one. For 200,000 years, before houses, before doors, before the concept of a bathroom with a lock on it, a human infant who became separated from their caregiver didn't just get lonely. They died. Not sometimes, not usually, almost always. Predators, exposure, starvation. The world outside a caregiver's arms was a death sentence for any child under the age of 3. Evolution, which is ruthless and patient in equal measure, responded the way it always does. It built a system. That system is called the attachment behavioral system, and it is not a feeling. It is a biological program, hardwired into the architecture of your baby's brain, designed to do one thing with absolute precision. Keep the infant physically close to the person most likely to keep them alive. Every behavior you associate with a clingy baby, the following, the screaming at closed doors, the reaching up with both arms, the complete meltdown when you disappear around a corner, those are not emotional outbursts. They are the activation signals of a survival program that is working exactly as designed. Your baby isn't being dramatic. Your baby is running the most important software their brain knows how to run. Here's where it gets precise. Because attachment isn't just a theory, researchers have spent the last 40 years mapping what actually happens inside a baby's nervous system during separation, and the data is extraordinary. When your baby loses sight of you, a cascade begins. The amygdala, the brain's alarm center, fires. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, floods the bloodstream. Heart rate spikes, breathing changes, the same neurological sequence that activates in an adult during a genuine emergency activates in your baby the moment you walk into another room. A team at the University of California, Berkeley, published findings showing that infants between 8 and 14 months, the peak of what's called separation anxiety, show cortisol responses to brief maternal separation that are physiologically comparable to acute stress responses in adults. Read that again. Your baby waiting outside the bathroom door isn't annoyed. They are, by every biological measure we have, in a state of genuine physiological distress. The feelings are as real as any fear you have ever felt. They just can't tell you that. So they do the only thing the program allows. They find you. Now, here's what nobody talks about, because this is the part that developmental psychologists find genuinely fascinating. It's not just that babies follow you everywhere. It's the pattern of when they follow you that reveals what's really going on underneath. Researchers at the University of Minnesota's Institute for Child Development spent years observing infant caregiver interactions and notice something striking. Babies don't panic every time a caregiver leaves the room. They panic under specific conditions: when the caregiver doesn't signal they're leaving, when they disappear behind something that closes, when the separation feels sudden, unpredictable, or total. The bathroom hits all three. You don't announce it, you don't explain it. You simply vanish behind a door that shuts with a click. To a brain that is still 12 to 18 months away from understanding object permanence at a sophisticated level, that click doesn't mean she'll be right back. It registers as something closer to she's gone, and I cannot verify otherwise. This is why your baby doesn't just cry. They cry and then press themselves against the door. They're using every available sensory channel to gather evidence that you still exist. They're listening for your footsteps. They're sniffing the gap under the door. Some babies will knock rhythmically, not because they learn to knock, but because action produces sound, and sound is data about whether someone is still there. Your bathroom door isn't a barrier to your baby. It's a data problem they are desperately trying to solve. In 1978, developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth published the results of a study that is still considered one of the most important experiments in the history of child development. It was called the Strange Situation Procedure. The setup was this: a mother and infant entered a room. A stranger entered. The mother left. Researchers watched what happened. Then the mother returned. They watched that too. What Ainsworth found wasn't that babies miss their mothers. Everyone already knew that. What she found was a map, a detailed, repeatable, categorizable map of the different ways infants manage the unbearable problem of separation depending on the quality of the relationship they've built with their caregiver. Some babies fell apart completely when the mother left, then pushed her away when she returned. Some barely reacted, then leaned in hard when she came back. Some showed a mix so confusing it seemed almost random. Ainsworth called these patterns secure, anxious avoidant, and anxious ambivalent attachment. And here is what the decades of research that followed revealed. The babies who follow you most intensely to the bathroom, who cry the hardest at the closed door, who seem to need you with an almost inconvenient urgency, are often the babies who are most actively building a secure attachment. They're not panicking because something is broken in them. They're panicking because the relationship is real enough to panic about. The attachment is working. Let's talk about what the behavior actually means as communication, because that's what it is. Your baby cannot walk up to you and say, "I need to verify that you still exist, and that the world is safe, and that I am not alone in it." Their language system won't support that sentence for another 2 years, so they follow you. Every step toward the bathroom that you take is, to your baby's nervous system, a small threat. Every time you reappear, that threat resolves. The relief isn't just emotional, it's neurochemical. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, releases on reunion. The cortisol drops, the amygdala quiets down. The body says, safe, still here, all is well. Researchers at Harvard Medical School studying infant stress regulation found that this cycle of separation and reunion, when handled with consistent responsiveness, actually teaches the infant nervous system how to manage stress. The baby who cries at the closed door and then calms when you emerge isn't just relieved. They are building what neuroscientists call stress inoculation: small doses of manageable distress, followed by consistent resolution, literally train the developing brain to regulate itself. Your bathroom trips, chaotic and interrupted as they feel, are doing developmental work you didn't sign up for and wouldn't have believed if someone had told you. Here's something most parents don't know, and it changes how the whole thing feels. Separation anxiety peaks between 10 and 18 months, not because something goes wrong at 10 months, because something goes very right. Around 8 to 10 months, a baby crosses a cognitive threshold. They develop what Piaget called object permanence. They begin to understand that things which disappear still exist somewhere. That understanding is a massive leap, but it comes with a cost, because now, when you leave the room, they know you're still out there, they just can't find you. And a brain sophisticated enough to know you exist, but not yet sophisticated enough to predict when you'll return. That is a brain that will sit outside your bathroom door and lose its mind. The anxiety isn't a regression, it's a promotion. Your baby is smarter than they were 3 months ago. And that's exactly why this is harder than it was 3 months ago. By 24 to 36 months, language starts bridging the gap. The child can hold a verbal promise in their mind. Mama said she'll be right back. The panic doesn't vanish, but it becomes manageable. The follows get shorter. The door crying gets quieter. The bathroom, impossibly, starts being yours again. But right now, in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like development. It feels like you cannot have 5 minutes to yourself. Developmental psychologists are careful here because the advice that feels most natural, the advice every exhausted parent reaches for, is often the one that backfires. Sneaking out doesn't work. It feels kinder. It avoids the immediate meltdown. But researchers at the University of Minnesota found that unpredictable disappearances increase separation anxiety rather than reduce it. When your baby can't predict when you'll vanish, they cannot afford to ever stop monitoring you. The vigilance goes up, the following gets worse. What the evidence actually supports is counterintuitive and deceptively simple. Narrate it. Before you move, tell them you're going. Mama's going to the bathroom, I'll be right back. They don't understand every word, but they understand tone, pattern, and predictability. A caregiver who consistently signals before departing and consistently returns exactly when indicated creates a mental model in the infant's brain. The brain learns. Departures are safe. They end. I can survive them. This is called predictive coding in developmental neuroscience. The brain doesn't just react to what happens, it builds a model of what to expect. When the model is reliable, the alarm quiets. When the model is unreliable, the alarm stays on all day. At full volume, you are not teaching your baby to be needy by responding to them. You are teaching their nervous system that the world is predictable, that people who leave come back, that distress is temporary, that they are safe. That lesson, learned in the first 2 years of life, becomes the template for every relationship they will ever have. Now, here is what you need to hear. Most bathroom following is completely normal. It is, as you now know, a sign that your baby's attachment system is functioning exactly as evolution intended. But there are patterns that warrant a closer look. If your baby doesn't follow you, if they show little to no distress at your absence, show little interest in your return, and seem equally comfortable with strangers as with you, that's not an easy baby. That's a baby whose attachment signal may not be firing the way it should. Researchers associate this profile, sometimes called avoidant attachment, with caregiving environments where distress has been consistently unmet. The baby hasn't stopped needing you. They've stopped believing that signaling need produces a response. On the other end, if the distress is so extreme that it doesn't resolve on reunion, if your baby cannot settle even when you're right there, if the panic seems chronic rather than situational, that's also worth bringing to your pediatrician. Not because something is inevitably wrong, but because the brain's plasticity in the first 2 years is extraordinary, and early support produces outcomes that waiting cannot replicate. Trust what you observe. You are the most precisely calibrated instrument in the world for reading your specific child. If something feels off, that instinct is data. So the next time you hear the crawling start as you stand up, the next time the small hands appear at the bathroom door, the next time you open it and find those eyes looking up at you, enormous and relieved, doing the thing babies do where they exhale the whole panic in 1 second flat the moment they see your face. Remember what's actually happening. Their brain reached for yours and found it. They ran a test that evolution has been running for 200,000 years. If I signal distress, does someone come? And you answered it again, the way you've answered it 1,000 times before. And every time you answer it, something happens inside that developing brain that no scan has ever captured, but every researcher agrees is real. They become slightly more certain that the world is safe, that people can be trusted, that love is not something that disappears behind closed doors. You didn't just go to the bathroom. You gave your child a piece of the nervous system architecture they will carry for the rest of their life. The ability to form relationships, to trust other people, to believe at the deepest biological level that when someone walks away, they come back. That's not a small thing. That's everything. So let them follow you. Narrate the leaving. Come back. Do it 1,000 more times. You are not raising a clingy child. You are building a secure human being. And if this changed how you see that small face outside your bathroom door, subscribe, because next time we're covering why your baby cries the moment you get on a phone call, and the science behind it is going to make you put the phone down forever.